The methodology chapter. This video will explain how to get started writing your methodology chapter for your dissertation. To understand your methods chapter, you need to first get your head around the difference between methodology and methods, two similar sounding words that have very different meanings in the research context. So let's start with research methodology. This is the broad approach to a research investigation that the researcher has chosen in order to investigate a topic or question of interest. Now, baking can help serve as a useful analogy to understand the difference between research methods and methodology. If you think of methodology as your overall approach that you're using to conduct your research, in the analogy, this is like deciding you specifically want to bake cupcakes or brownies or a layer cake. It's all research, just like it's all baking, but you're going to go a very different way about it, and therefore you're going to get a very different end product. Your methodology tells you what you want to do overall, but not a lot of detail about how you will do it. It really refers to the overarching strategy that guides the entire research process. In comparison, your research methods are the specific tools or techniques you're using to gather and analyse data for your study or research. Using a baking analogy, these are the ingredients and specific tools you use to complete your baking. For example, your mixer, your whisk, and also your ingredients. But also things on a much more granular detail, such as timing, the way that you combine the ingredients. So think of these as the practical steps or activities researchers undertake to answer their research question. This could involve surveys, experiments, observations, or interviews, and this will depend to some extent on the methodology. As you can see here, we have an attempt at a recipe for chocolate chip cookies. It tells us what we need, but there's a lot of information missing. If you wrote a methodology chapter with a low level of detail like this recipe, you're unlikely to explain what you have done sufficiently, and if it's assessed work, you will lose marks on this section. A detailed methodology provides a clear and comprehensive account of how research was conducted. Remember, in research, reproducibility is very important. Sharing the cake recipe would allow others to recreate the same delicious treat. Equally, in research, providing detailed methodology allows other researchers to replicate your study, to validate or build upon your findings. And here we can see a much more detailed recipe, which explains what you need to do step by step. This is a much better example of a method section. In the course of research, challenges and unexpected issues may arrive. A detailed methodology can help overcome these challenges and explain to the reader exactly what you did as a researcher. This information is really valuable for troubleshooting and problem solving. So what about your methods chapter? The methodology chapter generally acts as a guideline or plan of exactly how you intend to carry out your research. And your methodology should clearly state why you chose certain data collection and analysis methods for your research or dissertation project. And why do you need to do this? Well, the methods section allows the reader to critically evaluate a study's overall validity and reliability. It answers two main questions. Firstly, how was the data collected or generated? And secondly, how was it analysed? So when you come to write up your section, what should you include? Well, there should be an introduction to your chosen methodology. You need to tell me why you chose it, why it's appropriate for this, and what are kind of the key steps in this methodology. As it's a literature review, there should be some discussion about how you developed your question, and this is when it would be good to talk about which framework you used, which could be the PICO or the PO framework. You must talk about how you found your data, and in this case, for a literature review, your data is your papers. Tell me which databases you searched, which keywords you used. Did you use Boolean logic? Which was the date of your search? It would also be good to say how many papers you found initially, how many you title screened, how many you abstract screened. And you'll then need to talk about your inclusion and exclusion criteria. It's really vital that you provide academic justifications for these, and you can watch my video on inclusion and exclusion criteria to help you with this point. And finally, you want to introduce the next chapter. This is going to explain to the readers what they're going to find next. And in the case of your dissertation, it's going to lead on to your critique of the articles. A quick note about first person. So, as you are the researcher, how should you refer to yourself when undertaking the search? Remember, for academic writing, we don't want you to use first person, unless you're directly reflecting. So you need to perhaps refer to yourself as the author, or the researcher. Or you could write in third person, and say things such as, the literature was searched, instead of, I searched the literature. So, to recap, your methods are like a recipe. They need to be detailed and precise. Somebody should be able to read your methodology chapter and look at your methods, and they should be able to recreate exactly what you did and find the same results. If in doubt, try and add more detail in, and always remember to justify your choices.